All right, now we're going to talk about the spiritual practice of journaling, which has been a very helpful thing to deepen many people's relationship with God, and myself included. But I want you to know that this is not some uber spiritual practice that only people who really, really love God a lot do journaling, because it's not for everyone. And so I'm going to offer some ideas, some suggestions, some prompts, some questions that you might want to explore and use on your own. But this isn't some sort of grandiose expectation that everybody has to journal all the time. Different seasons of life, it might serve you well, others it may not. But we want to talk first about what journaling actually is. What does it mean to keep a journal, to write a journal? One way to think about that is that the process of journaling is just being honest with God. Being honest with God about what's current in your life, what's actually going on, in writing. So it's being honest with God about what's current in your life in writing. Now, some people choose to write, as I often do, in a physical journal. Others may keep a journal online or on their computer in some sort of way. But we want to talk about why that is important. Why would it be important to write, whether it's on a paper or on a computer? And there's a couple of reasons that I think would be valuable to you. The first is that when we write our thoughts, our reflections, our prayers down, it helps make them more concrete. Sometimes we may have some vague anxiety or some discomfort over a particular decision that we're trying to make, and it stays in this sort of cloud of unknowing until we actually write it down and we go, oh yeah, that's why I've been upset, or that's why I was confused by that conversation. The process of writing down makes it concrete and allows us to focus a little bit better on what God may be saying to us in that situation. But that second reason why it's very helpful to us to write down whatever's current in our relationship with God is that it does help us to focus, not only on the topic, but sometimes we just need help to stay focused on speaking to God directly. A lot of us pray in a journal, and sometimes if we're just praying without using a journal, our thoughts may meander, we may fall asleep, any number of things can happen. So actually writing it down helps us stay focused to the task at hand and staying present to what we want to explore and ask God about. So it helps us with being concrete, helps us to focus. And a third reason why it can be helpful is that it's great to keep a spiritual record of what's been going on in your life and how has God been moving, and perhaps there's some learnings that you wouldn't want to miss. This happened many times with God's people. The Israelites would be one example, and then all throughout history where they were able to recall the things the Lord had done in their lives and then make better choices in the future. And conversely, there were times when God's people forgot the ways that he had responded on their behalf and forgot his mercy toward them and ended up making some really poor choices. So if we want to move into the future wisely and well, it can be really helpful to have a record of what God has done in our lives so we can go back. So how would we go about this process of writing in a journal? The first thing is, obviously, you're going to need to choose a journal. Choose a format that works for you. Sometimes I pick one that seems to be representative of a season in life, but you don't need to be that specific. A 3-ring binder or a spiral-bound notebook will work just fine. But then the second thing, and this is, we have to say it, it's important for us to be honest. It's not always easy. Some of us, our own interior world is something that's quite mysterious, even to ourselves. So take time to reflect, to think, what is really going on in our lives? There's a great passage in the Psalms, Psalm 145, that urges us as God's people to bring our truest selves to him. And I love this verse, where it says in Psalm 145, verse 18, that the Lord is near to all who call on him, in truth. And in a way, that's all we have to offer, if we're being honest to God, is ourselves, our truest selves. And if we're calling out to God in truth, that's the only way God's ever really going to connect with us. So it's important for us to learn over time to be honest in our journals. And then the topics that you may write about, you might write about all 4 of these every time, or none of them, or other directions. But we want to go over each of these 4 areas in the next series of videos so that you can see how to use these as things you might want to write about. You might want to go back to some certain episodes in your life and record your life. You might use a journal as a place to express your true self. What is going on inside, and how are you responding? A third thing that a journal can do is help you solve problems, to get clear on what is this problem and how am I doing? And then lastly, to grow spiritually. So whatever you do, whichever way you do it, in whatever kind of journal, I hope you'll pursue a very practical and concrete way to deepen your relationship with God by being honest about what's current and write it down.